Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to our regularly scheduled meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Thames Centre. The day is Monday, July the 20th, 2026, and the time is just sneaking up to 5 p.m., and I would like to call this meeting to order. There are no additions to the agenda that I'm aware of. So an approval of the minutes or the agenda as circulated from the members of council, a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? And that carries. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest from the members of council?
Yep, Your Worship, 7.1, because I work for Advanced Drainage Systems as a Director of Finance, and there's potential benefits, so I'll declare about conflict of interest on that one.
And Councillor Heeman?
I'd like to declare an indirect conflict of interest with item 6.2, as I'm employed by a licensed alcohol manufacturer.
Thank you. Any announcements that the members of council would like to make? I don't have one this evening. No? Okay. So at this time, we do have a delegation presentation from Strathroy Hospice, fundraising for a new facility. And Darren McAuliffe, Vice Chair of Strathroy Hospice, is in attendance to present. So if you would like to come ahead whenever you're ready, just come to the stand there. Yeah, you can stand at the podium if you like, or you can use the desk there. Your choice. Okay. And for the microphone, right, just push in the center till it turns red and you're good to go.
Perfect.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Thank you very much and good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Darren McAuliffe. I'm very proud to say I am the Vice Chair of Strathroy Hospice. We have been working for a hospice in our community for a couple of years now. And I'm here today because I want to make something very clear right up from the front, and that is, although Strathroy Hospice is the name of our charity, we are not Strathroy's hospice. We want to be the hospice for the county, and we want to be the first hospice in hopes that places like Thames Centre will also have a hospice one day to help with your community in this area as well and be used as a roadmap. So tonight I'd like to share with you our project and how it's important to not only our community, but the county as a whole, and where we are today. So currently there are no residential hospices in the county. As you know, they're obviously London being your closest, or Woodstock from here. So when families reach a point where hospices is needed, they often have very few choices. Many are faced to travel outside the county, remain in acute hospital beds, enter long-term care homes, or try to manage complex care at home. And these are some of the most difficult times in families' lives. Residents of Middlesex County deserve the same opportunity to receive compassionate end-of-life care close to home as residents in neighboring communities. The need for hospice continues to grow. Our population, as you all know, are aging. More residents are living longer with illnesses such as cancer, heart disease, COPD, dementia, and neurological diseases. So hospice care strengthens our healthcare system. Patients no longer require hospital treatment, can receive specialized, comfort-focused care in a home-like environment. That means better use of hospital beds, fewer emergency visits, reduced healthcare costs, and better outcomes for the patients and their families. Hospice complements hospitals and long-term care. They're not to replace them. As a side note, long-term care was my career for over 32 years. In fact, I actually wanted a long-term care home in the Dorchester area back when Strathmere Lodge, your county home, was being rebuilt, and asked why not have two and have one for this side of the county. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I'm hoping that today and moving on, that healthcare, we can make some differences, because the counties where I've been most of my career, my life, and I want to be able to see this flourish. Next slide, please. So who will our hospice serve? Although we are currently, as I mentioned, Strathroy, this is going to serve the county. Now, I understand and I respect the fact that, you're probably a good 45 minutes away from Strathroy, Caradoc area where our hospice is being located. But again, I want to make it very clear that hopefully this would be a roadmap and a stepping stone so that we can get a hospice in other parts of the county. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So our hospice will serve residents throughout the county. Families shouldn't have to leave their community just to receive compassionate care. And the map, I think I believe on the next slide, the map, actually, I'll show you in a minute, will show you the different regions. But this slide here shows us, and we are the #1 there for Middlesex, London. You see the red. We have been noticed in 2024 that there was a hospice gap of 38 beds for the London Middlesex area. That has now increased to 48 beds. 10 beds are slated to come into London. So then that leaves us with the 38 for the county, and we're looking for 5 beds for our hospice. So 33 beds will be the balance of what is needed in the county. So again, as I've been saying, that the need is certainly going to be there to have a hospices in different parts of Middlesex County. Next slide, please. So what we want to do here is provide the gap of at least 5 beds. Now, the 5 beds that we've applied for an expression of interest back in October of 2024. We are still working with the ministry to get us those beds, but there are other ways, avenues to be able to open a hospice without getting official grants from the Ministry of Health. So those are the things that we are constantly working at. Right now, we are in the process, and Madam Mayor, you'll be on County Council. We'll be there asking for support at County Council, because we've had Strathroy Caradoc has approved us to move forward and designate a portion of our agricultural land that is being donated by one of our associate members to the hospice. And we're looking at having that change from agricultural to institutional, which was a big hurdle for us. And we're hoping that County Council will also give us their blessings and we can move forward with this project. Next slide. I'd like to share with you, if you don't mind, a story that one of our board members had to deal with herself personally. And this started 8 years ago and was one of the main reasons that we spearheaded this project for Strathroy Hospice.
My family holds hospice very near and dear to our hearts. During a time of profound sadness, hospice gave us peace and strength. In Rick's final days, we were able to focus on Rick and each other and not be consumed with trying to manage his care and pain. Rick wanted to die at home. Unfortunately, our family home, as like most homes, was not suited for a hospital bed and all medical equipment that Rick would require. During conversations with our children, we all wanted to keep the memories of their childhood home happy. When we all came to the decision to make hospice our choice, we were not able to get Rick into the closest hospice, which was in London. Our next option was either Kitchener or Waterloo or Windsor. We qualified for these out-of-area hospices only because we had extended family in these areas. But this meant we would have to leave our own community of Strathroy. We had no choice, and the day we got the call to go to Lassard Hospice in Cambridge, we left. When we arrived at hospice, we were greeted by such a beautiful setting, a home-like environment with medical, palliative staff, and volunteers who cared for Rick and all his family. The staff and volunteers at hospice are angels that walk among us. I truly believe this. Because of my family's hospice experience, my sister and brother-in-law both now volunteer. I remember the hospice doctor telling me, "Mrs. Steffler, we will not win this war, but we will win the battle of pain." He told me Rick's pain was coming from multiple areas, and we would treat all the areas differently. Within 15 minutes of arriving at hospice, Rick's pain was finally under control. He never experienced another horrific pain crisis again. In Rick's final days, we never had to leave his side. Hospice was set up for whatever any of us needed. Rick passed away peacefully in a beautiful sunroom, surrounded by his family, just like he wanted, in a home-like setting, not cramped in a hospital ward. Our family will be forever grateful and changed by our hospice experience. It is our hope and dream that hospice will one day be available for all Strathroy area residents who need it.
So again, no family in Middlesex County should have to make a journey outside of their community. And that's our focus. Next slide, please. Oh, that's okay. I can go ahead and continue. So this project has made tremendous progress. We've received letters of support from a variety of healthcare leaders across our region, which is, it is a must for us to be able to have those recommendations to receive our hospice from the ministry, hospice beds from the Ministry of Health. And include these hospice, these healthcare leaders are Middlesex Ontario Health, Sarnia Lambton Ontario Health Team, Ontario Health at Home, Middlesex Hospital Alliance. These organizations recognize that the hospice is missing an essential piece of healthcare in our county. Their support also strengthens our Ministry of Health application. This project is no longer just an idea. It is well supported by healthcare initiatives that is moving forward. Amount raised to date, as of today, we've raised over $1.55 million. And this is due to the incredible support that we received, not just from Strathroy Caradoc, but from many surrounding communities. Our vision, that's okay, no worries. Our vision is to build approximately 8,000 square foot home. And I want to say a home because it's going to look just like a home. We don't want it to look like an institution, or like scene looks like almost like a community center. We want it to look like you're walking into a nice, beautiful home. Each of the rooms will be private rooms with an adjoining area for family, extended family to be a part of. Each of those rooms will be open with a double set doors that lead out to a walkway, and the walkway will lead you to the pond. This beautiful property that is being donated sits amongst rural part of the area where you're surrounded by trees and nature, and it is the perfect place to be able to enjoy the peace and the quiet and just be in touch with your family and friends. We will also include comfortable family spaces, reflection gardens, peaceful outdoor areas, access to the beautiful pond, as I mentioned, and care that supports physical, emotional, and spiritual needs. We're also making a major effort to tie in our Aboriginal communities as well, because there is a gap for their communities, and we want to make sure that we look after their needs as well. So this hospice will become a lasting legacy of compassion for our community and other communities in the county. So look, that's all right. I was going to introduce this to the board, but that's all right. Our board consists of different professions, such as healthcare, like myself and Dr. Tyler Damon, who's our board chair. He's also a chiropractor, accountant, um, uh, funeral home staff. So it's a well-versed group of individuals with a common goal. Just wondering if you can go back one slide, if you don't mind. So this here gives you an idea of what the concept that we have looks like. The yellow boxed area is approximately 5 acres out of the 100 acres that is being donated. So the farm will still be intact with about 95 workable acres on their farm. Next slide. So the impact to Middlesex County, municipal support sends a powerful message. It demonstrates your commitment to healthy communities, supporting seniors, supporting caregivers, improving healthcare access, and ensuring that residents can remain close to home at the end of life. We also hope that this hospice becomes a model that helps the communities across Middlesex County establish future hospice services. So tonight, I'm asking for your support for our Ministry Health application, and support for bringing hospice closer to home, and support for ensuring that no family has to leave the county to receive compassionate care of end of life. Residents of Thames Center deserve access to compassionate and end of life care as well, and that is going to be one of our goals. Thank you for your time, and I'd love to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Mr. McCulloch. I appreciate your presentation this evening. I'll turn it over to council now to see if they have any questions for you. Anyone from council with a question? Councillor Crockett?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation and coming in this way. I appreciate you clarifying that Strathroy isn't just the intended location. I'll bet the physical location, but opening it up to the rest of county. You'd mentioned that you've raised 1.55 million to date. I was just curious what your end goal was, because we didn't see the slide, but
Yeah, great question. Our end goal is 5 million.
okay.
We do have an off the record type of approach by a family that once the land has been completely severed and in the hands of our charity, that there'll be a substantial donation that will hopefully get us to about the $4 million mark.
That's wonderful. And just my final question is in regards to the capacity. You had mentioned that you're hoping to have 5 beds.
Correct, 5 beds.
Would that be growing on that? So that's what you're going to be building for, is for the 5 beds?
Correct.
And then you had alluded during your presentation that you would be, I would say, willing to assist with future hospices in the future. And I think that's something that we could really get behind in support of that, because as you mentioned, Strathroy is a little bit of a distance, but we are still part of the same county, and obviously much closer than the alternative options outside of London Middlesex.
For sure. And I do want to say that although you are a bit of a distance, and this is your community, that doesn't mean to say that you couldn't have family members access that, especially if it's something that, London is full or Woodstock is full. If there's a bed, they need it. The way we want it to work is if you have an application from London and you have an application from the county and you only have 1 bed, we take the county.
Okay.
And especially knowing that we want to be able to really preserve the right of the rural part of our community. And, if you were born and raised on the farm and farm most of your life, then, and you want to be able to end your life in that kind of rural environment, you should be able to. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crockett. Anyone else? With a question? Councillor Lockie?
Yeah, through your worship. Yeah, thank you so much for coming here to present to us. It's such a needed service. And also thank you for all the volunteers in this project. I was just curious what sort of time frame that you had for this project.
Again, great question. A lot of it's going to depend on the ministry. Once we can get over this next hurdle of county giving us the blessings, move forward with severing the property, and it's in the charitable name. We write a business plan to the Ministry of Health, which we've already been drafting and working on. And as, if you have any indication of how the Ministry of Health works, it could be a slow process, but we are, you know, we have a lot of support from our MPP and municipalities really pushing for this because again, there is that need. You know, we've already been told numerous times in the past couple months that, you know, I wish you were open now because we need it. You know, I've got this person or we have this person in our family and it's tough.
The other question that I have is that, so if there's an overcapacity, so if you have more needs than you have beds available, how is it decided who gets the beds?
Well, again, as we mentioned, a lot of it's going to be criteria is going to be based with the doctors in terms of, you know, how end of life, you know, doctors will look at your situation and say, you know, it could be 2 or 3 weeks versus somebody that's 2 or 3 months.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's one of the, you know, the medical part of things. The other one, as I mentioned before, is when you have 2 applicants and one may be from the city and one may not be, then we're going to, you know, look after the one that's in our county first.
Okay, but in terms of people in the county, like there won't be any preference given to Strathroy versus other communities. It'll all be equal.
Yeah, no, as far as we're concerned, and again, unless the ministry tells us otherwise, that's how we want to proceed with that.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Councillor Heeman.
Thank you, Your Worship. The presentation is marked to be received for information. Would it be helpful to have a letter of support, or is this
It-
more of a?
That is one of the asks. Would be definitely be wonderful if we can get a letter of support from Thames Center in support of our hospice, and even put in. I would even suggest to put in the letter that hopefully it will be, you know, used as a call it a stepping stone, a roadmap, you know, an opportunity so that Thames Center will eventually have a hospice for your community as well.
So is that part of the recommendation, or would that need to be made additionally?
It can just be added as part of the recommendation to receive it, just to receive it and that a letter of support, hospice be sent. Would you like the letter sent to you, sir, or?
You can address it to me. That's fine.
Okay. Well, I would like to make that amendment or make that motion. Amend the recommended motion.
Before we call for that, I just wanted to ask a question myself.
Please.
The $5 million targeted goal that you have, does that include is that just the building, or does that include any wages for staff or
So
any of that sort of thing?
yeah, so the 5 million is for the building and the furnishings. So the way it works with hospice, which is different than long-term care, is the ministry will give you funding, operational funding for direct nursing care only. So, so let's say for a director of care, your PSWs, anything that's direct care will get funded by the ministry. Housekeeping, executive director, your utilities, and all of the other things not related to nursing will be 100% funded by our fundraisers and the charity. So they being the ministry expects hospices to basically fundraise probably equivalent to about $800,000 a year for our 5 beds.
Okay, thank you very much. That answers the question. So we have a mover on the for the recommended motion with the addition of the letter of support. A seconder for that motion, Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Good.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
you.
My sister died in hospital, so this is very close to my home. So having something where people can die with a little bit more dignity than you get in hospital. So
So
Thank
my condolences for you and this is actually the second presentation I had. It sort of hit a little home. I just did one in Glencoe last week and somebody had to leave because again, she was dealing with something that was very similar and it was just very difficult to go through. I will mention this. Somebody asked, what's the difference between hospital and hospice, considering you can get palliative care in a hospital? My answer was, you know, not to be overly blunt, is the fact that you can't compare the two. A hospital is obviously very institutional. You could very well have 2, 3 other people in your room. It's not private. It doesn't give you the peaceful, one-on-one atmosphere that you would hope for. And also they don't have the staffing ratios as we would have in hospice. Like on a day shift, you're pretty much on a one-to-one basis, which is exactly what you want. If I was a family member needing care, that's what I would do.
Well, again, I thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming in. This was a very good presentation. Thank you. All right, so we'll move on now to 6.2 on our agenda. Mr. Dino Dassi, alcohol sales at the outdoor recreation complex. And go ahead. So it's the same sort of thing. You push that center button there, and then when it glows red, you're good to go.
Hi. This is very hard to follow after that presentation, but emotional. My name's Carla Dassi. This is my husband, Dino Dassi. We run the concession booth at the Field of Dreams. We've called the concession booth Grill and Chill. And we're here tonight to ask for permission to have a liquor license at the Grill and Chill. We've had customers asking, is it possible we could have a beer with our pizza and watch a game? And well, obviously we said no, not yet, but we too feel like it would be a good idea to be able to have a liquor license. I think it would add to the Field of Dreams. We feel it's a good addition. We feel like it may even bring out some people from Dorchester to go up and maybe watch some of the ball games. I too was unaware of the caliber of ball that's being played up there. Like it's a real high-end caliber. They play in many different areas like throughout Ontario. So we've got a really beautiful field up there. And if anybody I feel was to be responsible enough for a liquor license, I do feel it would be Dino. He ran the Fat Olive for 8 years. We had a liquor license there. We never had any infractions. And again, if you know Dino, he's very responsible. He's family orientated. He's always giving back to the community. I know when he had the Fat Olive, he always sponsored the ringette team. He always participates in the parades that Dorchester has. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we ran the concession booth up there during COVID when they didn't have anybody else to run the booth. At that time, we gave it up after just to focus on the Fat Olive. But Dino has, now that we don't have the Fat Olive, he's spent a lot of time and energy into trying to improve the concession booth at the Field of Dreams. He's brought in a fire brick pizza oven, flat tops, brought in a lot of good quality food. You know, Dino, his hamburgers are from the butcher. You know, Dino, he is always giving quality. We just feel like it's a good idea, and we're just here tonight just to ask permission to proceed with a liquor license. If you say yes, that's great, and if it's no, that's okay too. We're just here to ask, and if you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer any of the questions you may have about if we had a liquor license.
All right, thank you. What I'm going to do is I'll see if there are any comments or questions from the members of council on this one. Do we want to do that before we go to your report, Steve, or?
I might as well do my report because then questions can be for anybody.
Sure, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Through you, your worship. You have before you report CSF 021-26. regarding the DASI's request to sell alcohol at the outdoor recreation complex, more commonly known as the ORC. At this time, I will summarize information beyond what the DASIs have provided just now, thereby providing council with all the information possible to make an informed decision. As part of our thorough consideration of this request, staff has received input from county legal and our insurance provider regarding what updates the existing facility lease agreement would require in the event council supports the request. These amendments to the lease would help to mitigate potential exposure to risk for the municipality, with the 5 key recommended updates to this lease agreement outlined starting on the bottom of page 3 of the report. These changes address compliance with the municipal alcohol policy, AGCO requirements, indemnification terms, insurance requirements, safe storage and security of alcohol on site, along with addressing risk of loss. A draft of the proposed revised facility lease agreement is attached to this report. Another avenue that staff explored to provide as much information as possible was to reach out to the key youth sports associations that play on our sports fields in Thames Centre, including the ORC, for their opinion on this matter. If you refer to the other attachment to the report, you will see the reply I received from Adam Stern, representing the Great Lake Canadians, who is not opposed to the sale of alcohol at the ORC. This attachment also provides a joint reply on behalf of Dorchester Soccer Club and Thames Centre Minor Soccer. Besides their identification of existing concerns, which staff are working on and will take into consideration with the upcoming update to our municipal alcohol policy, this joint minor soccer response to this opportunity is in opposition to alcohol being served from our concession stands at our community parks and sports facilities, with them providing 5 reasons why they felt that was the case, which you can read towards the bottom of that attachment. In addition to the attached feedback, after this agenda was published, I received feedback from Thorndale Minor Soccer, and their reply was as follows. We haven't had any issues that I've known about, and whatever is decided will work for us. For more input, I reached out to the other municipalities in Middlesex County. None of them currently sell alcohol at their parks or outdoor recreation concession stands, while some of them do have alcohol sales within their arenas, whether in a dedicated space like we do in our Blue Line room or concession stand in their arena. In addition, one of my contacts at Middlesex London Health Unit noticed the report on our agenda this past Friday night and sent me some of their literature called Reducing Alcohol Harms, a Primer for Municipalities, which our clerk then shared with council via email this morning. I can expand on that email if you wish. The background section of the report outlines other factors to take into consideration, specifically required steps if council supports it, the pros of this opportunity, and any cons of this opportunity. So first of all, for required steps, the DASIs, in order for the DASIs to sell alcohol at the ORC, council would need to pass a resolution permitting alcohol licenses at the ORC. Council would need to direct staff to amend the lease agreement accordingly, and Mr. Dassey would have to apply to AGCO for a permit. Potential benefits with permitting sale of alcohol at the ORC include, besides what Mrs. Dassey has already outlined, increased revenues and sustainability for the tenant, an additional option for patrons to enjoy, and as well, we have the opportunity for a test run for the balance of this year as the current facility lease agreement expires at the end of September. So should council choose to support it, we can see how it goes and then decide accordingly before extending the lease or considering extending the lease. Potential risks of permitting alcohol sales are basically various risks with intoxication for anyone who drinks too much. That can include property damage, altercations, personal injury, and motor vehicle incidents, which can then lead to the municipality and the business being held liable. Even though within our facility lease agreement, we are named as an additional insured under the Grill and Chills insurance. So we are covered in that regard, but that doesn't stop people from coming after municipalities. So again, other risks, again, just if people are intoxicated, would be risk of facility damage by anyone, any attempts to maybe break into the facility to steal alcohol beyond hours, increased exposure of youth to consumption of alcohol, potential increased maintenance, whether that just be cleanup of solo cups thrown around, vandalism, property damage, etc. With that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have at this time. With the report's recommendations being, first of all, to receive this report for information, and then secondly, to either maintain the status quo of no alcohol sales at the ORC or to approve the sale of alcohol at the ORC and direct staff to amend the facility rental agreement to permit the sale of alcohol at the concession stand at the ORC.
Thanks, Mr. McDonald, for your report. I'm going to turn it over to council then for questions. Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for taking over the concession stand. I think you articulated it well that there is a caliber of baseball there that I think a lot of people don't know about, as well as the other draws of just the general baseball and soccer that takes place at that facility. So I understand both the appeal and the hesitations around this. My real question, I guess, is really just around the proposed hours of operation where alcohol would be served, whether this would be on a regular basis or just for special events. I was just kind of wanting your understanding on that.
We'd probably do it on a regular basis as they're there pretty much every night. On the weekends, maybe a little longer because they're there from 9 in the morning, but we can start at whatever time you see fit.
Thank you. I think in just conclusion is that there's alcohol kind of permitted everywhere these days, it seems to be the thing to do from our provincial government anyways. And I know that there's special instances that we have even at the Diamonds here in Dorchester where the Lions Club have been permitted for special tournaments, etc., to sell. So to me, I think that I don't personally have a problem with this, and I respect that your experience being a business owner and someone who understands the rules and regulations around alcohol sales. It's quite comforting that you'd be kind of the guinea pig for us to explore this. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crockett. Councillor Lockie.
Yep, through your worship. I don't have a question. I just would like to give my opinion on the matter. So like I recognize that the county sent the primer and, you know, reminded us all about the risks of alcohol. But I believe that the benefits may outweigh the risks because, you know, having a beer and a hot dog at a baseball game, it's just a thing that people enjoy. And I think that if you have it served by people that are smart serve trained, it can be enjoyed more responsibly rather than the risk of people sneaking it in. I also agree that, you know, the province already does a really good job at, you know, curtailing the risk. There's a lot of liability to establishments. Smart served servers are very, very well trained. There's extreme penalties on alcohol infractions, and they do an excellent job of public awareness. And for that reason, also that it is be excellent for our tourism and economic growth. So I'm in support.
Thank you, Councillor Lockie. I'm going to offer a few comments myself and a couple of questions. I think just from what's come to me, there's a concern about little kids, you know, when they're out there for their soccer games and that sort of thing. So will you be, if this goes through, would you be serving alcohol in sort of a specific area where, or would people be able to get a beer and wander the entire?
Whatever you guys, however you want it done.
However we want
I've
it
had
done?
the AGCO out there. They're fine with the property being licensed, or if you want just a certain spot, that's fine too.
Okay, and so in terms of hours where alcohol would be served, would do you have any ideas sort of?
Well, basically
specifically?
right now we're running for food, we're running 5 till 8:30 during the week. Then on
Okay.
the weekends, we're running from 9 till 8:30. And then we're obviously open when there's tournaments out there.
Yeah.
Start at 9 or 10 according to the tournaments.
Okay,
But in general, if it's just normal, would be like 5 till 8:30, and then on the weekends all day.
okay. The one thing that does come to my mind is the fact that this is this is a sort of a world-class facility with lots of other things going on with it. And it's always been a concern of mine that there is no real incentive to business owners to, sort of keep the money in the municipality rather than it be spread out. So I think what you're after and the improvements that you've made are good. I think I would be supportive of this as long as, that there are certain monitors that are put in place. I don't think, in my experience at these parks and that sort of thing, that there's an overabundance of alcohol use, particularly when the young kids are around. So from an economic standpoint of view, I do support your request now that I've heard your presentation. So if that's a conclusion to the comments, Councillor Heeman's not here, then I know he can't. So anyway, the motion that we have before us is that council receives the delegation from DTASI regarding alcohol sales at the outdoor recreation complex. So that's the first of our motions. A mover and a seconder for that one. Councillor Lucky and Councillor Crocky, and all in favor, and that carries. And then you've done your report, Steve, so that we'd have two here. That report number CSF-021-26, request to permit alcohol sales at the ORC stand be received for information, and that council approve the sale of alcohol at the ORC and direct staff to amend the facility rental agreement to permit the sale of alcohol at the concession booth in the ORC. Moved by Councillor Lockie and seconded by Councillor Crockett. So all in favor? Thank you for coming in tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, number 7 on our agenda is a public meeting regarding drainage, and it's to consider the Thorndale Industrial Drain. So an overview of the work. Are you Mr. Veriken? Did I pronounce that right? Okay, pretty well, but not there. Okay, you go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. We are pleased to present a report tonight here on the Thorndale Industrial Stormwater Management improvements here. This is a Section 4 request under the Drainage Act, so a petition by the Road Authority, specifically for Ideal Drive and Gerald Parkway. There was ongoing issues with the system here. There's currently storm sewers that outlet into private ditches, which outlet into old extraction pits and then soak away into the ground. So both the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority and the Ministry of the Environment have identified that as not a suitable outlet for the industrial water and the road water that leaves the site. So this was essentially an appointment to rectify these situations and also to provide proper drainage and legal drainage for the road, as currently it's going through a private system, which the municipality cannot maintain if there's issues in the future, if there's debris in that dam or if sediment builds up. Same with these extraction pits. So the purpose of this report was to convert the south open channel here, the municipal or the current private ditch there, into a municipal ditch. This would provide the legal ability for the municipality to maintain it. There's not a lot of work being proposed on this drain. It's more to allow it to be maintained in the future. It was constructed under an engineered drawing from SBM. It was constructed in approximately 2016 and is in fairly good condition. There's not a lot of work to it. The bigger issue here are these extraction pits, these existing extraction pits on the west. There's 2 of them which these channels empty into. They are semi-rehabbed, particularly the north pond, but the south pond is very much in an active construction state. So this would be to convert these into active stormwater management ponds, make sure they meet health and safety standards for safe slopes and things like that, make sure they're doing their intended function of providing the water quality they need. Part of it that came through here is to clay line these ponds to make sure that the water is not exfiltrating, but rather using the proper outlet. In 2010, Stantec had designed a stormwater outlet for this area. However, it's never been connected to, it's never been utilized due to the cost here. So this proposal is to make use of that outlet, connect the north pond to that, and then have a pipe connection between these two ponds. We did investigate taking a piped outlet directly from the south pond into the Thames River. However, due to the minimal cost savings, and UTRCA was not supportive of that approach, we figured for a couple percent on the total cost of this project, it was easier to stay in the route, which they were supportive of. So that's a quick overview of the project here. There was significant consultation undertaken here with the affected landowners. There are a couple active gravel pits here between the two ponds here. So we had reviewed their extraction pits, their rehabilitation plans, and designed the cross connection pipe there to work with their future land use to make sure that the landowner wasn't feeling the impacts of having, that in a location they didn't want. So we've kind of hugged the property line there and taken not the most direct route, but the route that made the most sense for the landowner. We've also talked with the largest portion of undeveloped lands there. We talked with their engineering team to get their proposed layout and make sure that what we were designing would work for their future development plans there of the system. So we've designed the system to up to and including the 250-year storm. So that's what our current regulations are for both Upper Thames and the ministry. So this will provide both quantity and quality control and a proper legal outlet for all the lands currently served by this and any future lands to be serviced by this. And there's almost 300 acres that's served by this system. So it's a quite large system here. There's 16 pages of drawings here that are attached to this report. They detail the works to be completed and also incorporate that south open channel for future maintenance. The total cost of this construction and report is approximately $2.2 million. And that includes allowances for the affected properties, and through consultation with staff, it has been decided that the appropriate cost recovery mechanism for this would be through future charges to the developing lands under bylaw under the Municipal Act, meaning that the municipality would pay the cost today and then the cost would be recovered as lands develop here, to make sure that there isn't a burden on those lands. Lands that haven't developed yet would have a large cost to date for something they may not recover for a very long time. But we wanted to make sure this is, looking forward and making sure it is able to provide the level of service that is needed to develop those lands. And if there's any questions, I'd welcome them through you.
Thanks very much. Okay, so are there any questions from affected landowners who may be in the room? Okay, if you'd like to come to the podium here and ask your question, if you could just state your name and your property address, please.
Two 1735 Missouri Road.
And your name, please?
Philip Coots, K-U-D-S-K. I've
Okay.
gone through these plans. We're already being charged for something that doesn't exist, will never exist, because our homes have been there for well over 75 years for the most part. Never needed a storm sewer, don't need one now. Never will. And from what I've looked at these plans, none of this attaches to any of our properties. Rob, Roy, they also are being affected by this. There's no reason to be charging us for anything, for something we cannot use or nor will ever be able to use according to these plans.
Any response?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. There is no assessment to you. There's no cost to you. There would only be cost to people as they develop in the future. So I'm uncertain on
Well,
what
I've,
you're
I've got a
referring
bill
to.
here somewhere. I can show you myself.
Just while you're looking, I think Mr. Craven, our Director of Public Works, has a response.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I believe that the charges that you're speaking of is the stormwater rates charge that everybody inside the urban boundary of Dorchester and Thorndale, beginning last year, are being charged. That's the paperwork I think it dropped off to your place. The storm sewers in the village of Thorndale. You drive on them. Oh, okay. Okay. Everybody inside the urban boundary was charged that storm sewer beginning last year. Those are the charges that you're seeing on the water bills.
Just as an aside to this, I think they're different matters. This one, the report that we've just received is regarding drainage. The issue you're raising is about storm sewers. So they're not related in this particular instance.
Well, he's talking about putting in a storm sewer. I'm getting a charge for a storm sewer.
I think it's drainage works.
Because of the storm sewer that you're paying for, you are not being assessed what all the undeveloped properties are in this area are. So because you're paying that by monthly charge, you're waived from these charges here that they're speaking of.
Till when? Till the township takes it over and then I have to pay more?
I'm not sure how to answer that question.
I would suggest we try to move on and maybe he could reach out to staff after the meeting.
Okay.
To try to discuss this further because it does not appear related to the
Okay.
report at hand.
All right then. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone else in the chambers who wishes to speak to the issue? Again, if you could just state your names and your property address?
Yeah, hi, it's Jules Patton. I don't have the exact blue number, but we're the South Pond. Basically, they want to put the largest. Yes. So right now, there's a ditch that they made through our property, and now the water gets just dumped at the back of our property as of right now. So when it floods, everyone's water comes on ours. We're working with the township. We want this all to go through. It's just that the price of that they're taking our land is kind of, I think we're valued at $65,000, which is kind of
not acceptable. So either we lower development charges down to nothing, or this pond will get scrapped.
In this particular case, that will be dealt with at the next meeting. So, or a subsequent meeting in any
Yeah,
case.
because we're not gonna let it go through.
So there, yeah, we have, the next meeting would be a court of revision. And that, in that opportunity is to talk about the assessments. This one, this one is just to have the engineer's report on the work that's to be done in the geographic location. So did I answer the CIO may have a response as well. Hang on one moment.
Sure. Yeah. And sorry, I was just going to note that I think the engineer can speak specifically to the report this evening and may have a response to the question you raised in some part.
Yeah, we brought this up.
Oh,
we're for it. We wanted to turn this industrial and make money in the town for everyone, build factories. But in order to get people out to Thorndale, we have to lower our development charges.
Not what you're saying is we're gonna get charged for it. Once we go to develop. Word.
okay, Mr. Verheyen, would you like to provide your response?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. For as far as allowances are a topic of discussion today. Assessments, you're correct, would be a matter for court of revision, but allowances, compensation for land taken should be discussed at tonight's meeting as they form part of the project. And if you would like, I can respond there.
Absolutely. Why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. As the patents have said here, yes, we've had multiple conversations, both us and the municipality previously on the compensation for the land value here. Specifically, there has been a, let's call it a disconnect in the value of the land here for both the municipal ditch here and the stormwater management pond here. As it currently sits, these lands already have these features. These features were built as a community system when these previous developments took place to service these lands. They existed. What do you? It was not done through a formal, please let me finish, and then if you want to answer questions, that would be appropriate afterwards. They were done to serve these areas, provide enough depth and capacity to serve these areas. So this land was already taken, this land was already built upon. This land, physically cannot be taken out of, these ditches cannot be removed, or this water from all these properties will have nowhere to go. The whole intent of these ditches were to serve the roads and the lands, which the previous owner then severed these lands and then sold these to make money. So this was all part of the existing system on these properties prior to the purchase from the patents here. So this was existing. What we have given them compensation is there's a little bit of land on the south pond that we're expanding it beyond what was there historically. So we're expanding the footprint of what's been there historically, and that's what we have provided an allowance for. We provide an allowance of 33% higher than what they purchased the property for in 2020. So we took the land value that on a per acre basis that they paid for the whole parcel through the land registry, our office prorated it by 33% to accommodate for some inflation and some land value growth, and then gave them compensation for that additional land that was taken. So that was how we have to come up with our land. It was an existing situation that was on the property when it was purchased, couldn't physically be removed without significant, infrastructure to offset or rebuild that. So we don't think there is a value that should be attributed to that land that was already already dedicated to these uses prior to purchase. Also, there is a significant benefit to this property too as a whole, because without these upgrades and these necessary improvements, there will not be any further development of these lands. The MECP and the UTRCA are very clear that this is not an acceptable outlet for stormwater and will not approve any more further development in this area without this being rectified. So I struggle to see how fixing the solution is making the property less valuable.
Yeah, we just want to get it done right, but we also want to bring in clients in order to buy, if we build a pond. So people.
Are you talking about additional development charges over and above?
So if you turn this pond in, it's for the use of industrial land. People are going to be dumping their water in there. So right now, without getting charged, they're dumping it on our land. We're paying taxes. This water's getting dumped on our land. There's never been an agreement for this ditch they put in. It was just the guy that owned it before dug a ditch and let the water run under this property. We bought it, and then we said, hey, where's the agreement? There is no agreement. And we're fine with that. It was just that we were trying to do an industrial park there, but in order to get clients there or people that want to buy it, our development charges are high in order to put buildings there. So we're getting low number for our value of our land. It's going to be about 20 acres that they're taking from us. And if you guys want to have tax money from industrial land buildings, companies that come in here, like St. Thomas has no development charges for industrial land. None. That's why they're making huge deals right now with big companies. So I'm just saying, we're getting stuck with the 67,000. I don't know, could you buy a lot for 20 acres for 67,000 anywhere? No. I just find kind of low number, but again, I'm trying to work with the township. I bought it for specifically, we're servicing it right now to sever off 2 lots. We want to get this going for you guys, for the township, the people, but we said we need a little bit more money than 67,000. And if that's the case, or no development charges. So when I go to try to bring factories into Thorndale, I have a little bit of leverage to say, hey, come to Thorndale, build a factory here. There's no development charges. I've been to St. Thomas. I've talked to the mayor there. The mayor that's why they're doing so much work there.
All right. Not sure that we can address this right here. is there anything else that, okay, I'll turn it over to Councillor Heyman here.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. And thank you for trying to bring jobs and industrial lands to the village of Thorndale. I think that's important, and I think that's kind of why we're here today. That's the big goal that I believe the majority of people are getting behind. And yes, that it does contribute to the tax base, it contributes employment lands, all these good things. So if you're looking for reductions in development charges, that is something that we cannot do as a council at this point in time.
That is fair enough.
Because
Just bring it to your attention, that's all.
Yes, but no, I'm not just trying to kick the can beyond this meeting. It's in terms of the direct mechanism. This council has already set the fees and bylaw charges for this year. And because it's an election year, there'll be a whole separate council and we don't have the ability to change those at this time. So I think that is a good discussion in terms of what is the structure and under which we are trying to attract development.
We can discuss it after the election year and have a bylaw just on something.
That I think if that's the way you want to pursue this, that would
Something.
be the appropriate time.
Yeah.
And I think there's these different conversations are also connected to each other, right? So we've had a number of different developments come to council, and in many of those instances, the developer front ends much of the infrastructure that we're talking about. This is somewhat unique because there is the drain, there is the lack of documentation as you've outlined, but in these instances, we look at the facts on the ground. And that's what's made this a compromising position in terms of the water flowing into your property, right? And that's
Right, we're trying to get a fair number. I find that the number's low, like the people that drew up this drawing is getting 160,000. And we're getting 67,000. I just find it kind of weird, the balance of the land. And I just, I've been dealing with the water for over 5 years, pumping it out. It floods our roads that we can't even get into our property. But again, we've been trying to work with everybody because we are seeing the big picture. We want to turn this industrial park. So we're trying to work with everyone. And, we just deal with it. We go about our way. But again, I'm just saying the value that they're putting the land at, I just find it kind of low. That's all. I don't think I'm out of line by saying that.
if this were a residential subdivision, the developer would put in all the land for the stormwater pond out of their own pocket, right? And so, and I understand that yeah.
That could be a big issue for the township. They're allowing everybody to dump their water onto our land, untreated. It says in this, untreated. If I go get a test done and there's sort of fuel or anything.
So that's the Ministry of Environment, and that's they assess the polluter who is generating the pollution. That's a completely separate set of regulations, but so as developers, that this increases the total value of your portfolio and your asset.
We
And-
understand. We're
Right, so
understanding.
that's the
So,
upside.
I just came here about, which we can't discuss today, but development charges.
I think what this is moving a little beyond what we can do tonight. So I think there are going to have to be other sort of side discussions on this before council can.
And that's totally fine.
okay,
Just
yeah,
want to
please.
bring it up to your
And-
attention, what's going on, just so everyone knows where we're at. That's
No,
all.
and I appreciate that.
That's
Yeah,
all.
we. 'cause
We're just trying to use that as
know the
leverage to help
background.
people that buys factories. If we could use that, our land being so low, then hey, let's offset it with development charges. That's all we're sort of trying to negotiate here.
Yeah.
Just so that we can help and bring sales and factories to Thorndale.
But that's not something we can do. So right here. So do you have anything else that you'd like to address through the engineer while he's here? Okay, all right. Obviously, this is a fairly big topic. I know it's a little behind it's a little behind, isn't it? So, okay. Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate that. Is there anyone else in the room who is affected by this who wanted to speak? Okay. And
Okay, I just wanted to give you guys what my understanding, for this, if you want to talk for council, if you want to deal with these allowances, from my just reading about this, I'll admit I haven't dealt with someone complaining about their allowances before. Council has the ability to send the report back to the engineer basically, or terminate it. You guys, just so you guys are aware, you don't have the ability to change allowances.
Through you, your worship, yes.
Okay.
There would be three options tonight. It would be to proceed with the report as presented,
Mhm.
refer it back to us to make an adjustment to the allowances with your suggestion on what you think we need to consider more on, or terminate the petition. Based on the fact that, you know, both the landowners and the municipality all seem to be on board with the physical works, I don't think that option 3 is the resolution. So it's essentially
Well,
whether
it doesn't fix the problem right?
that's correct. And
So,
just to add a little bit more input here, it's, you know, we struggled with whether we should even be providing allowances to these owners. Essentially, they have a parcel they would like to develop that they can physically not develop because the MECP is saying that there are infractions on their property that need to be rectified before further development. So we struggled for the fact that we are essentially fixing the problem that's going to benefit them and then still providing them some allowance. It certainly doesn't seem fair to buy all, you know, probably somewhere around 12, 15 acres that is either stormwater pond or ditch on their properties. That is an existing situation that they knew about when they purchased the property. The property was sold extremely cheap due to these ongoing issues, and they were aware of these when they purchased this, or I could only forecast that they were aware of them because the property was extremely cheap, which only makes sense because of the known issues. That's kind of my final inputs on these allowances.
okay, thanks very much. So is there anyone else, before we move on, is there anybody else who's affected by this who would like to speak to the matter? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Excuse me, gentlemen, could you just keep your conversations outside the chambers or now, so oh, you wanting to speak again
Yes, please.
on the same matter, the drainage matter?
Yes.
Okay,
I worked in a plastic injection molding company, and they are the ones that are polluting the land. To cool down the pipe as it comes out, they run water over it. That way there it doesn't, you know, hot piece of plastic just doesn't melt on the floor. So they're constantly using the water and then dumping it into the pond. So ideal drainage is the root of this problem.
okay, that
How they ever got a permit to do this is beyond me.
respectfully, that is something that's happened in the past and it's not something that we can deal with. We have to deal with the matter at hand. So I do thank you for
Well,
your
then can we
comments.
get
but
an environmental report of what's coming out of that drain right now?
I don't know that enters into this discussion, but I'll turn it over to the engineer.
Thank you. Through you. Specifically, the majority of this work is for the South Pond, which Ideal Drainage does not drain into. They will utilize the outlet of the North Pond, but specifically most of this drainage area goes through the South Pond and is the cross connection between. So Ideal pipe is currently not even in this South Pond. However, if you do have concerns about, you know, water quality, I encourage you to reach out to the ministry. That is not a municipal issue. It's not something the council can really react on. So if you have concerns, reach out to the
So
Ministry
you're
of the
kicking the
Environment.
can down the road.
No,
It's gonna end up in the North Pond.
I think, sir, he's just trying to outline the fact that there are some things that are a little beyond our jurisdiction. So,
Well, I don't think so. It's an environmental disaster.
okay.
Deal with it.
So if there's no one else to speak to this, is there anyone who would like to add or remove their names to the petition? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone there. So are there any other questions from the members of council? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't particularly have a question. I think we're all in the agreement that something needs to be done. as I was saying to Travis earlier, my typical stance on drainage requests is if you request it, you likely need it. And this is very much the case on that. I think that there is a lot of history of kind of what brought us here today, that is muddying the waters a little bit. And I just want to say thank you for putting together this report. I know that it's, I think, substantial as well as, a bit more cumbersome than I think everyone wants for this, but ultimately we are being directed by the ministry and UTRCA on this. So our hands are kind of tied, and for the future, I think we kind of just need to nip this in the bud and move forward on this. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crockett. So is there anyone else wishing to comment, or Councillor Heeman?
Yeah, so just to be clear, those who will be assessed benefit are primarily the industrial users of this future outlet. They are not adjacent residents who are not going to receive the same benefit.
Through you, your worship, yes, the only people who will contribute financially to this would be future developers. So anybody who would develop industrial lands in this area, this 300-acre parcel or 300-acre block, there is not anticipated to be any cost recovery from either residential properties or existing industrial that have been constructed based off the history here. We're not sure what approvals were or were not given, but based off that fact, it doesn't seem fair to retroactively ask them to fix their outlet after they've already constructed their facility and got the approvals they thought were necessary at the time.
And then that is because of a lack of a traditional outlet in the form of an official drain that encompasses the current topography and layout.
That is, let's not even call it a traditional, but an acceptable outlet. Groundwater infiltration is not an acceptable outlet for industrial stormwater. It is known to have contaminants at times. I'm not saying that there are known issues on these sites, but they do not want that seeping into the ground, causing groundwater issues. So there was in 2010 a storm sewer outlet that was constructed down to the river by Stantec, and this is connecting that and making utilization in accordance with the plan that they had, essentially the plan they had laid the groundwork for in 2010.
Okay, so I just want to connect some of the dots here, because I think that there are people who may not be paying into the drainage assessment, but are paying their stormwater fees, and see a connection between these two things. And I think that is valid and highly convoluted, because the way that these things are regulated by the province is that we are not able to fund them outside of stormwater activities unless there is, a traditional agricultural drain. So we're using this drainage assessment mechanism to recover the upfront costs for this. We are financing it through the reserve funds from the stormwater fees, which will then be recollected through the sum assessment and also through future development fees. That's the whole conversation that we've been having in disparate elements. Is that correct?
That is more or less correct, yes.
Yes, and so for those who believe they may not directly benefit from this stormwater project, the fact that we are conducting stormwater improvements and infrastructure on a continuous basis is what benefits the urban area. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Everyone done? All right then. So the decision before us then is that report number DR 009-26 prepared by the drainage superintendent dated July 20th, 2026, concerning a meeting to consider the Thorndale Industrial Storm Management report be received for information, and that the Thorndale Industrial Stormwater Management report as prepared by Breed Associates dated December the 4th of 2025 be received and adopted. A mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Heeman, and all in favor. Thanks very much for your attendance here tonight.
Yes, thank you very much.
And, right, we have to send a date for the Court of Revisions. The date for the county, let's see now, what is the date you were thinking?
So it needs to be the week of August 10th to keep within. And so we either need 3 or 5 members, depending on who's here. It will be a separate meeting and held virtually.
Okay, and the deputy mayor has agreed to be part of the court of revision, so 2 other people who would be willing to serve. No, anyway, you can't. Okay, Councilors Lockett, Councilors Crockett and Keeman. Okay, and a date? Jen, have you got a?
What works best for you guys, staff are amenable to when it works best for you. Does the engineer have any issues or conflicts?
Any, yeah,
No, thank you. Between Mike and myself, we will be able to accommodate. However, if you do need to change the timeline a little bit there, the act reads 40 days from the mailing of the bylaw. So you could delay the mailing of the bylaw a week or 2 if you wish to push it onto a regular.
We need to get this done before the
Yeah.
21st.
yeah.
No problem. Thank you.
Sorry.
This
that's
year is a
why.
bit different because of the election, so sorry about that.
August
Good with the
10th?
10th.
Is there a specific time? Do you want to do it in the evening? Or do you want to do it during the day time? I know you work during the day.
Yeah,
Evening 5 PM work for you guys? We'll just do it virtually. It will be virtual, it's just easier, but.
Okay, so just so everybody is completely aware, so the Court of Revision will meet on August the 10th at 5 PM virtually.
Yes, and I just need the motion to appoint the members.
Okay, so a motion to appoint the members. Councillor Crockett rather, and I guess.
Councillor Heeman, can you second the motion too?
Okay, so all in favor? All right,
you.
and that carries then. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So now we're going to move into agenda item number 8, public participation meetings regarding planning. And the motion reads that the council adjourn its regular meeting at 6:17 PM and move into public participation meetings pursuant to the Planning Act to consider applications listed on the July 20th, 2026 regular council agenda. A mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Lockie and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? And that carries. So the first item is the proposed plan of subdivision application 39T-TC 2601. And the property address is 3004 Westchester Bourne, otherwise known as County Road 74. And an overview by our planner, Alana Cortez. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. So the purpose of this application is to create industrial lots for the future development of the subject lands. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide an overview of the proposal and also to receive any comments from council and the public. And staff will return at a future meeting with a recommendation after reviewing all comments and technical studies. So the lands are designated rural industrial and natural heritage system according to the official plan, and they're zoned M2 rural industrial as well as environmental protection. So the rural industrial designation is intended to accommodate dry industrial uses such as warehousing, contractors' yards, and truck terminals. So the subdivision proposes 13 industrial blocks, 1 stormwater management block, 1 open space block, 1 new looped road, 2 future road connection blocks, and 3 reserve blocks along Westchester Bourne. So the proposed industrial blocks range from 2 to 4.45 acres, and all lots would be serviced by private wells and septic systems, as municipal services are not available. So a 3.68 acre stormwater management pond is proposed, and the environmental protection lands are contained within the open space block and will not be developed. And there's a 30-meter buffer that's shown on the draft plan. So a transportation impact study, servicing report, and archaeological assessment were submitted. The archaeological assessment concluded that the subject lands do not contain archaeological potential and no further assessment is required. The transportation impact study and servicing report are undergoing third-party peer review. The Upper Thames River Conservation Authority has confirmed that previously mapped regulated areas do not meet the definition of regulated features. So the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority have recommended that these features be removed from the regulated areas mapping. So agency comments are received from Public Works. So the request for truck turning templates and confirmation of adequate radii. The county engineer provided comments. Access must align with Bradley Avenue. Turning lanes required, no additional access points permitted. The chief building official advised demolition permits would be required for the existing house on the property. And the septic and well for that house must be decommissioned. Emergency services spoke to street naming and 911 addressing requirements. ExxonMobil advised no infrastructure is present, so no concerns. And those were all the agency comments received at this time, and no public comments have been received to date. So staff recommend that the report be received for information and that staff be directed to provide a subsequent report which evaluates the application and takes into account all the public and agency comments received with a recommendation for council's consideration at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alana. Is there any additional information to be provided by either the owner or the agent? Go right ahead. And you're Caitlin?
I am, yes, yes, thank you. Through you, your worship, my name is Caitlin Crowley, planner with Zelenka Priamo and the agent for this application. I just wanted to thank Alana for the overview. She did do a good job of just kind of giving you a summary of the proposal. I just wanted to add that subject to the decision, we would be subject to subdivision conditions, which we would have to obviously satisfy in order to execute the subdivision. So I just wanted to note a lot of the detailed design for the actual subdivision would be subject to a future detailed design phase and each block would be also subject to site plan approval. We do intend for each of the blocks to be compliant with the zoning bylaw. If they are sold in the future, anybody wanting to deviate from the bylaw would be required to submit a zoning bylaw amendment. I'm also available to answer any questions tonight. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. Let's see now, any public questions? Anyone in the gallery or online who may want to comment or ask questions? Would you like to come up to and state your name and your property address, please?
Oh, can you turn the microphone on?
Sorry, just good.
Oh,
There you go.
we got to turn this thing on.
Say that again, so.
Okay, I'm Leslie Pierce.
Okay,
I reside 3038 Westchester Bourne. Alrighty, I guess I'll start with my most important concern being the decrease in property value because it's a residence as opposed to industrial. I'm going to be surrounded three sides by this park. And I'm wondering about the quality of life. Of course, we're not going to have the peace that we used to have, but it is what it is. I don't know who gets to decide what industries are permitted adjacent to my property or like either side behind. So then there's possible light, noise, dust pollution, and whether or not there would be a buffer or something between my residence and the goings on of this industrial park. So, and being a shift worker, well, I kind of sleep in the day and you can't really make a noise complaint during the day, unfortunately, but it is what it is. And then the groundwater runoff. Without the crops there, there's going to be more water running from the higher ground down to my lower level, possibly contaminating wells or maybe even depleting wells, depending on how many wells are going to be drilled in the neighboring area. So that's basically my concerns.
okay. Thank you very
Alrighty.
much. Thank you. Any responses to any of the concerns raised? Caitlin?
Yes, thank you through your worship. I can't necessarily speak to property value or quality of life, but in terms of the industries, it would be subject. So the owner of the property currently owns the entire property. As the subdivision gets subdivided and sold off, those industries would have to, again, like I said, comply with the zoning bylaw. But in terms of the specific nature of the industries, that would be subject to the owner and who he decides to sell it to. So he would essentially control who the subdivision blocks get sold to. With regards to light, noise, and dust pollution, that would be subject to the future site plan approval applications for each of the blocks. Each one would be subject to provide a photometric plan, which would not allow any light pollution off the individual blocks. Similar noise and dust would be required because this would be a rural industrial subdivision. They would be subject to likely a noise and dust study through the site plan approval application. And then in terms of groundwater runoff, our engineers AGM did provide a detailed servicing report. It does go into quite a bit of detail just with regards to on-site water, stormwater. So we do have a stormwater management pond on the property, and all flows post-development would be required to be better or improved from pre-development flows. So we would be improving the situation post-development. So I just wanted to make those few notes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who want to ask a question or make a comment? No, and no one online then, Sarah? Okay, all right. Any questions from the members of council on this application? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Alana and Caitlin, for your kind of overview of that. And thank you for bringing those concerns forward. I think they're pretty typical, especially in your specific area, since your neighboring lands are zoned rural industrial. With that, I was wondering whether Alana could just expand on what the rural industrial zoning could potentially include. It might give you peace of mind, it might not, but just of what could potentially be out there. And then I just wanted to also ask when the property itself was zoned from agricultural to rural industrial, when that took place, because although it looks and is currently being farmed, the zoning has been changed, for my knowledge, for some time.
Through your worship to Councillor Crockett. So the property is currently zoned M2 rural industrial and permits a range of uses, but dry industrial uses in nature. So a tradesman shop, a service shop, a sawmill, truck terminal, vehicle repair garage, warehouse. So there are a number of different uses that would be permitted there. But they would, the development of each of those blocks would be subject to the site plan control process, as Caitlin mentioned. So that would, address buffering and that sort of thing. With regard to when the lands were zoned to M2, I can speak to when the lands were redesignated. So they were redesignated from agricultural to industrial in 2014 as part of the 5-year review for the official plan. So we would think that the rezoning happened around that time as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. My second question pertains to, as you mentioned, the laneways. That wasn't the wording you used, but the access points, I guess, from the proposed subdivision out to neighboring lands. I was just wondering, does that then allow for potential expansion into neighboring lands, should that agreement come forward? Or is it kind of a standalone subdivision?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Crockett. So the subdivision does take into account potential future expansion by including 2 future right-of-way blocks. But the inclusion of any lands as part of the industrial designation would need to go through the planning process. So at this time, it's just kind of planning ahead potentially, but that doesn't mean that those lands are going to be included in this subdivision or anything like that. The stormwater management will be just for this subdivision, and everything with this development is just related to what's being proposed at this time.
Okay, and my final question pertains falling down house on the property, and I'm wondering how that will be addressed and perhaps even a timeline should this be going through this evening.
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Crockett. So part of the CBO's comments was that the house be demolished and removed as part of a draft plan condition. So that would definitely be included as a draft plan condition. Thank you.
Anyone else from council with a question? Okay, seeing none, if there's no further discussion, the public participation meeting is now closed, and we move to the decision. That report number PDS 034-26 with respect to application for proposed draft plan of subdivision 39T TC 2601 as requested by 1,303,629 Ontario Limited for 3004 Westchester Bourne County Road 74 be received for information, and that planning staff be directed to provide a subsequent report evaluating the said application, taking into account all public and agency comments received, with the recommendation for council's consideration at a future meeting. Moved by Councillor Lockie and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? And that carries. Thanks very much. Next item on the agenda is item 8.2, the official plan amendment application 01-26 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z8-26 for the property at 6545 Trafalgar Street. So, Elena, you're up again. Go ahead.
Thank you, your worship, through you. So the purpose and effect of the official plan amendment is to redesignate a portion of the subject lands from the agricultural designation to the extractive industrial designation. And the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone a portion of the property from agricultural to extractive industrial. And the effect of both is to permit the expansion of an existing sand and gravel pit. So the existing Trafalgar Street pit, which is located on the west side of the subject lands, and this is otherwise prohibited. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide an overview of the proposal and receive any comments from council and the public, and staff will return at a future meeting with a recommendation after reviewing all comments and technical studies. So the subject property is approximately 21 hectares or 42 acres and is located on the south side of Trafalgar Street, west of Hunt Road. The lands are currently used for agricultural purposes and contain some natural heritage features, including significant woodlands and a portion of the North Dorchester Swamp. The applicant is proposing to expand the existing Trafalgar pit, which is located on the west side, to allow the expansion. So the applicant is requesting the official plan amendment to redesignate the property to allow extractive industrial uses, and to rezone the property to also allow for extractive industrial uses. So the proposed expansion area is approximately 11 hectares in size, with about 9.4 hectares being used for extraction. The operation would involve the extraction of sand and gravel and would function as an expansion of an existing pit. The applicant has indicated that access would continue to use the access would be the existing entrance to the Trafalgar pit. And operating hours are proposed to be from Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m., and no operational or Sundays or statutory holidays. So this proposal seeks below the water table extraction as well as above water table extraction. So with respect to, so several comments were, or several technical studies were submitted in support of this application. And those include a hydrogeology study, natural heritage and archaeology, as well as an agricultural impact assessment. And staff will be discussing peer review requirements with the applicant. So with respect to agency comments received, we've received comments from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, and they've indicated they have no objections to the applications. No concerns were identified by the county engineer or the drainage superintendent, and Public Works also advised no concerns, and no public comments have been received to date. So following tonight's public participation meeting, staff will continue reviewing the applications and any comments received, and a future report will be brought forward with an evaluation and recommendation for council's consideration. So staff recommend that the report be received for information and that planning staff be directed to return with a subsequent report and recommendation at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alana. Okay, so is are the owners in here at all, or the which is, oh, there you are, I'm sorry. Go right ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Alana, for providing the overview. My name is Melanie Horton. I'm a registered professional planner with Escher Planning, and I'm the agent for Patent Aggregates and Soils Limited, who's the applicant in this case. I do have a presentation, so I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Hopefully you can see that. I'll do my best not to duplicate the information that Alana has provided in the overview, but I really wanted to just provide a few highlights of the operations and rehabilitation plan and just some details about the related Aggregate Resources Act application. So let me see if I can figure out how to get to the next slide here. There we go. So as was described in the overview, the site is located at 6545 Trafalgar Street, part lot 17, concession 2. It's on the south side of Trafalgar, just west of Elgin Road and southwest of Thamesford. The existing pit that's to the west of the site operates under license 626167. That site has a licensed area of 27.3 hectares. And as was mentioned, this proposed pit expansion would be for an area of 11 hectares, which is approximately half of the 21 hectares of the parcel that we're looking at today. The property is currently in agricultural use, contains an active agricultural field, and is bounded by a tree line to the west and woodlots to the south and east. At the south end of the property, there's the provincially significant Dorchester Swamp. And I think if you noticed on the zoning image that was in Alana's report, that feature is zoned environmental protection. It is outside of the area that's proposed for extraction. So what you see on this slide here is just an excerpt from the Aggregate Resources Act site plan, and it shows the sequence of operations. So essentially, the intent would be to take the sand and gravel from above and below the water table, moving from west towards the east part of the site in 2 areas. This resource is it's a very high quality sand, and Patent Aggregates and Soils uses a lot of this resource to supply bedding sand primarily for dairy operations in the area. Progressive rehabilitation will occur according to the requirements of the Aggregate Resources Act. And so as an area is depleted of sand and gravel, rehabilitation occurs as they move to the next area. The undisturbed areas would remain in agricultural use. And the proposed tonnage limit here is 150,000 tons per year. That would be combined with the existing license. So the existing license also has a limit of 150,000 per year. So that wouldn't be doubled. They'd just maintain that same limit with this additional expansion. The hours of operation, as mentioned, were 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays and 7 a.m. to noon on Saturdays. And as also mentioned, the proposed entrance would be through the existing pit onto Trafalgar Street. And the rehabilitation plan, as you can see here, would, with the below water extraction, would create a pond on the site. The pond would be almost 6 hectares, so 5.7 hectares, with 1.2 hectares of wetland around the edges of that pond, and then 2.5 hectares of meadow along the side slopes of the pond. So you can see on the image there that represents the pond that would be created. The shoreline plantings would be primarily native wetland plants and tree species. And just a couple of, as mentioned, there were a number of technical studies that were submitted, both with the Planning Act application and with the Aggregate Resources Act application. And just very high level, some highlights from those reports. So the setbacks that were recommended through the Natural Environment Report include 15-meter setback from the woodland and a minimum 50-meter buffer along the edge of the wetland. And there would be, of course, silt control measures, which are typical for extraction that's in proximity to a wetland area. There are also some proposed plantings, and those details are all outlined on the site plans. There are also 4 groundwater monitoring wells. You can see them on the top image. So they surround the site, 2 on the east side, 1 at the southwest corner, and then one up near Trafalgar Street. And those track the water levels around the site quarterly. That's a fairly typical condition for below water aggregate operation. Just to point out one other thing, you can kind of see on the image on the bottom there, those are the contours. So there's a fairly high ridge in the center of the site, the west center of the site, and it slopes down towards the east part of the site. And as mentioned, it is a fairly rich sand deposit that's thickest in that part of the property. And just lastly, I just wanted to highlight the related Aggregate Resources Act application, or ARA we call it. My colleagues Bernie Jansen and Samantha Brown from Harrington McCavan are heading that part of the process. They have made the application for a license under the Aggregate Resources Act, and the Ministry of Natural Resources is currently reviewing that. The applicant did host a public information meeting back in May, and there was a comment period under the ARA. It's a 60-day public comment period, public and agency comment period, and that ended June 15th. So as a result of that, there were comments provided by Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, Ministry of Natural Resources, and Upper Thames Region Conservation Authority, or River Conservation Authority. There were no concerns identified with either the Natural Environment or Hydrogeology report and associated recommendations. M&R has asked for some changes to the site plans, and that's fairly typical in this day and age, that M&R is very specific about the wording on site plans to ensure that they're clear and particularly that they're enforceable. So there were some suggestions made, and Harrington McCavan is working through those changes right now. And as part of that circulation, there were no public objections that were received. So I think that's my last slide. Happy to answer any questions you may have this evening.
Thanks very much, Ms. Horton. I'll now ask is there anyone in the gallery or online who wishes to ask questions or comment? Okay, all righty. So I will turn it over to the members of council in case they have any. No questions from council? Okay. If there's no further discussion, the public participation meeting is now closed, and we'll move to the decision portion. A mover and a seconder that report number PDS 031-26 with respect to the applications for official plan amendment 01-26 and zoning bylaw amendment Z826 as requested by Patent Aggregates and Soils Limited for 6545 Trafalgar Street be received for information, and that the planning staff be directed to provide a subsequent report evaluating the said applications, taking into account all public and agency comments received, with a recommendation for council's consideration at a future meeting. Okay, moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Temporary use bylaw amendment application Z11-26 for property 24054 Heritage Road. It's item number 8.3 on your pre-circulated agenda. So again, you're busy tonight now. Okay, you go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. So the purpose and effect of this application is to permit 2 single detached dwellings on the subject lands. for a temporary period not to exceed 3 years while a new dwelling is being constructed. So the applicants are proposing to construct a new dwelling while temporarily retaining the existing dwelling during the construction process. And because the agricultural A zone only permits one dwelling on a lot, temporary zoning is required to allow both dwellings to exist at the same time. So the Planning Act permits municipalities to authorize temporary uses for periods up to 3 years. And Thames Center's official plan contemplates situations where two homes temporarily exist on a property while a replacement dwelling is being constructed. So planning staff have reviewed the application and are satisfied that the proposal is temporary in nature, is compatible with the surrounding area, can be adequately serviced, and will not create adverse impacts on neighboring properties or the broader agricultural area. So to ensure the temporary nature of the approval is maintained, the applicant will be required to enter into a temporary use agreement with the municipality, and the agreement requires the existing dwelling to be removed following occupancy of the new dwelling, and includes a security deposit to ensure compliance. So the application was circulated to relevant agencies, no objections were received, and the comments can be found within the report. In addition, no public comments have been received to date. Staff note, while there is a staff report regarding options for temporary use provisions to be heard later tonight, this request was brought forward by the applicant with the understanding that changes may be coming to the temporary use process. Staff are satisfied that the proposal is consistent with the provincial planning statement, conforms to the county and Thames Centre official plans, and represents appropriate planning. So staff recommend approval of the application, and that the associated temporary use agreement be executed, and that council considers the implementing bylaw. Thank you. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alana. Is anyone in the chambers or online who wanted to ask questions or comment? Okay. Any questions from the members of council? No? All right. No questions, so we'll close the public participation meeting. And the decision is attached to your agenda, that the report be received, etc. Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? And that carries. So a mover and a seconder that the planning public participation meetings adjourn at 6:47 p.m. in order to sit as a committee of adjustment under the Planning Act to consider minor variance applications listed on the July 20th, 2026 regular council agenda. Moved by Councillor Lockie. Moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? And that carries. Sorry. Okay. Alrighty. So this is a item number 9 on your committee of adjustment agenda. 9.1, a minor variance application A6-26 for the property at 5338 Marion Street, and we'll look to Aaron to present.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So the next application before the committee this evening, again, is for 5338 Marion Street in Dorchester. The purpose and effect of this application is to seek relief to permit the construction of a pool house and shed, which both exceed the maximum floor area and height for accessory buildings in the R1-15 zone. Specifically, the applicant is proposing to construct a pool house that is 58.7 square meters in size and a detached shed that is 117.98 meters squared for a combined floor area total of 176.69 square meters, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum floor area of 90 square meters or 75% of the floor area of the dwelling, whichever is lesser. The application also requests to permit a height of 5.28 meters for the pool house and 6.2 meters for the detached shed, whereas accessory buildings are limited to 5 meters in height in the R1-15 zone. The subject lands are located on the north side of Marion Street, east of Clara Street in Dorchester. The property is approximately 2,395.9 square meters in size and approximately 30 meters of frontage along Marion Street. The subject lands are currently vacant, but the applicants have submitted a building permit to construct a two-story dwelling, which is approximately 390.5 square meters in gross floor area and a height of approximately 11 meters from grade to peak. The dwelling will be constructed on private well and septic services. There is a municipal drain which runs east-west across the frontage of the property. This restricts the septic system from being located in the front yard. And so to properly accommodate the proposed structures, the septic bed is to be separated into two parts in the rear yard, which can be seen on the site plan that is attached to my report. In addition to the new dwelling, the applicant is proposing to construct an in-ground pool with pool house and a detached shed in the rear yard. The structures would exceed, again, the maximum permitted floor area of accessory buildings in a residential zone. This is currently limited to 90 square meters in size, or 75% of the floor area of the dwelling, whichever is lesser. So based on the size of the dwelling that is proposed, the maximum permitted floor area is 90 square meters, as 75% of the floor area of the house would be 292 square meters. The applicant has advised that the pool house would contain a changing area, related pool equipment, and a covered seating area, and the detached shed would contain a golf simulator, which is why the size and height increase is requested. In total, the applicant has advised that the lot coverage of all buildings and structures would be approximately 14%. The subject lands are designated residential in our official plan and zoned a site-specific residential first density R1-15 zone in our zoning bylaw. So the Planning Act provides
Sorry, Aaron, I think we've lost some audio. Or did we lose you entirely?
that the principal dwelling will be larger.
Did we lose you again, Aaron?
I'm so sorry. Is it okay if I turn my camera off? I am having an unstable internet evening.
Oh, okay. Do you want to turn your camera on? There.
Yes, yes. Okay, shall I continue?
Okay. Yeah, sure. We can hear you. It's just there was a little glitch there. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. So my foretest analysis was primarily based on the fact that the principal dwelling would be taller and larger than the accessory buildings as proposed. The height increase for both the pool house and the detached shed is nominal, in my opinion, specifically given the proposed height of the single detached dwelling, the fact that they would be located in the rear yard, and the fact that they would not contain a second story, so that overlook or privacy concerns for neighboring properties would not be affected. Furthermore, the overall lot coverage of all buildings and structures on the property is proposed to be approximately 14%, which remains substantially below the permitted lot coverage of 35%. So it would not appear to be an overdevelopment of the site from a visual perspective. I would also note that the combined accessory building lot coverage is cumulative, and it is spread across two separate accessory buildings, which would limit the visual appearance of these two separate structures being the dominant structures on the property. So with that being said, the application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. We did not receive any comments or concerns from any agencies or departments, and I did not receive any public comments on the application as well. So that being said, my recommendation this evening is that the minor variance be granted, subject to one condition, and that is that the dwelling is constructed as per approved plans submitted by Everest Estate Homes, dated March 20th, 2026. The only reason why I'm requiring that condition is that my analysis was very much based on the fact that the house would be of a specific size and height. So I'm happy to answer any questions if council has any this evening. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Aaron. So is there anyone in the chambers who wishes to speak? Yes. Do you want to stand up and tell us your name? And are you the builder?
Yeah, through you, your worship. I'm Nathan Cook, the builder of Everest Estate Homes.
Any additional comments over and above the planning report?
No, I want to thank Erin for her thorough report. It was well done, and I appreciate this, the support for moving the motion forward, and I look forward to council support as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Okay, thank you. All right, and there's, let's see, I guess that is it. So I'm assuming there's no one in the council chambers who wants, and no one online? Okay, so we'll turn it over then if there are any questions from the members of the committee. Okay, all righty. So if there's no further discussion, we will close the public participation hearing and move to the decision. It's fairly lengthy. It's appended to your agenda. I'll give you a moment. And it's online. Okay. A mover and seconder, if you're ready. Moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? And that carries. Thanks for your attendance here tonight. The next item is 9.2, minor variance application A7-26 for the property at 3558 Elgin Road. Overview of the planner, and again, Ms. Besh, if you're still around there.
I am. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Okay. Go ahead, Erin, whenever you're ready.
So the purpose and effect of these minor variance applications, there's technically two. We have separated them into two separate motions this evening to try to keep the two specific variances separate. So the first one, A7-26, is looking to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to permit a minimum lot area of approximately 28 hectares, whereas a minimum lot area of 40 hectares is required within the agricultural zone. The variance is required as a condition of consent application B2125, which approved the conveyance of approximately 0.37 hectares from the subject farm to the abutting residential property municipally known as 3558 Elgin Road. The second application this evening is A826, and this is seeking relief from the zoning bylaw to permit two existing residential accessory buildings to remain in front of a future single detached dwelling on the lands municipally known as 3558 Elgin Road. The subject lands associated with minor variance application 87-26 are the 28.37 hectare farmlands located on the southeast corner of Cromedy Drive and Elgin Road. The property contains an industrial soil and gravel operation in the northwest corner, as well as provincially significant wetlands, significant woodlands, which are all regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, as well as cash crop production on the balance of the land. On March 9th of this year, Council considered my planning report PDS-011-26, which regarded the consent application to convey the 0.37 hectares from the subject farm to the abutting residential property. Staff recommended refusal of the application and as a result did not provide a draft list of conditions. However, Council did direct staff to prepare a recommended list of conditions for consideration at a subsequent meeting, which was brought forward on March 23rd of this year under a separate report. I did provide a list of conditions of approval, which were approved by Council. One of those conditions was that the owner must obtain relief from the minimum lot area requirement of the agricultural A zone, as the retained farm parcel, which was 28.37 hectares, and it was losing approximately 0.37 hectares and being reduced more than the 40 hectares. Therefore, a minor variance application is required. The purpose of the approved lot condition is to enlarge the existing residential parcel to accommodate the future construction of another single detached dwelling. The new dwelling is proposed to be located further from Elgin Road than the existing residence, and this would result in the existing residential accessory buildings being situated in front of the dwelling and closer to the front lot line, which is not permitted in our zoning bylaw. So the applicant has also made the application A826 to permit this arrangement in the future. The residential property at 3558 Elgin Road has an area of approximately 0.36 hectares. Upon completion of consent application B2125, the lot would increase in size to approximately 0.73 hectares in size. So I did want to note that the original planning recommendation for the consent application was refusal. I am of the opinion that the proposal resulted in the unnecessary loss of approximately 0.37 hectares of productive agricultural land for residential purposes. This is not consistent with the provincial planning statement or in conformity with our official plans. And although council did ultimately approve the consent application, my recommendation or my planning opinion regarding the appropriateness of the proposal has not changed. So that is why under the 4 tests of minor variance in my analysis section, I did not find support for the 4 tests. Specifically with application for minor variance A7, the variance would permanently recognize an undersized agricultural parcel, which results in the removal of productive farmland for residential purposes. The proposed reduction is not associated with a legal or technical reason contemplated by the provincial policy, but rather facilitates the continued expansion of an existing residential lot. Further, for application of minor variance A8-26, I did want to note that test number 2 is the variance and appropriate use of the lands. I did find support for this test. From a site planning perspective, relocating the principal dwelling further from Elgin Road, which is a county road. This would improve the residential setback from the road itself and provide a more desirable location for the future dwelling. The proposed variance would allow the existing accessory buildings to remain in place, avoiding the need to relocate or demolish the existing structures. And in that respect, I am of the opinion that the second test of minor variance can be accommodated. However, under the Planning Act, the 4 tests must all be satisfied in order to find support for a minor variance application. As outlined in my report, I do remain of the opinion that the proposed variances facilitate the continued loss and fragmentation of prime agricultural land and establish a site layout that does not represent good planning. So therefore, my recommendation this evening is refusal of both applications. I noted the reasons in my report and did want to note that the reasons for A8-26 did not include the second test, which is the appropriateness test. So I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have this evening.
Thanks very much, Erin. I appreciate that. Any additional information from the agent or the applicant? I don't know. Did this question asked before? There's nobody online wishing to speak this either. Any questions or comments from the committee members? Councillor Heeman.
Thank you, Worship. And I'd just like to thank the planner for the presentation. And I understand that we put you in a awkward position in the past and that you are being consistent with the professional standards of your discipline. And I think that, the basis on which it was approved in terms of this being, a common sense use of the land. And I think if you look at it as part of an accessory use and accommodating that, and that the proposed lot that resulting from the severance would be within the overall rural residential guidelines, I think this makes sense. And just for fun, if you look at all of the other things that we looked at this night, I think this would be the smallest amount of fragmentation that will occur.
I'm sorry, anyone else? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Tom. I would have to agree with that. But I think further to that is when we passed the conveyance back in March, we had these specific conversations at both of the meetings in regards to the changing of property lines, as well as the accessory buildings being in front or rather beside the proposed dwelling in the future. So with that, I would like to move a motion to grant the minor variance. But if there's, yes, I can read the reasons. Do you want me to read the whole thing?
You don't have to
Okay.
read the whole thing, as long as you're good with A7 and A8, and then just give us some reason.
Perfect. So I will go forward with moving in a motion to grant both the minor variance of A7 and A8. The reasons being that it maintains the intent and purpose of the official plan as council has already approved the principle of this law addition through consent application B2125. It maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. It's desirable for the appropriate development of the land as this fulfills a condition of consent B21-25, and the reduction is minor in nature and does not alter the agricultural character of the area or conflict with the farming operation.
Thanks, Councillor Crockett. A seconder for that motion? Councillor Heeman? And all in favor? And that carries. Okay, thank you. Thanks for your attendance here. A mover and a seconder that the Committee of Adjustment adjourn at 7:05 PM and council reconvene its regular meeting. Moved by Councillor Lockie and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? And that carries. So we move on to the approval of the previous minutes. That is the meeting of Monday, June 29th, 2026, to be approved as circulated. Councillor Crockett and Councillor Lockie, all in favor? And that carries. Items on the consent agenda are listed, are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. Anyone wanting to pull anything from the consent agenda? Okay, a mover and a seconder, Councillor Lockie and Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Don't scratch your head, it counts as. All right. And reports of departments, item number 12.1, PDS 03726, options to review temporary use provisions, and Lindsay Noren, senior planner, to present.
Good evening, everybody. The report before you was prepared in response to Council's direction to review whether there may be a more streamlined approach to situations where a proponent is building a new house on a lot and wishes to remain in the existing until at such a time the new dwelling is ready to be occupied. Currently, because our zoning bylaw only permits one dwelling on a lot, anyone wishing to do this will have to go through a temporary use zoning bylaw amendment, as we're all familiar with. That process currently requires a temporary use application, which is a total of $1,200, a security deposit of $5,000, and a registered agreement requiring the removal of the original dwelling once the new home is occupied. After a fulsome review, everyone does it a little bit differently and calls it a million different things. But some things are all rooted in the same trends. So some municipalities, rather than requiring a planning application, would administer it through the building department. And property owners enter into a demolition agreement, provide a financial security tied to the estimated demolition cost, and are required to remove the existing dwelling shortly after occupying the new one. The agreement is then registered on title, which still provides strong enforcement mechanisms should the owner fail to comply. So after reviewing the approaches, I believe there's merit in modernizing Thames Center's process for owners, staff, and council ease. Applications could be administered through a delegated process tied to a building permit, while still requiring those registered agreements and appropriate securities to ensure that the original dwelling is removed. So this approach would reduce costs, reduce administrative burden on applicants. As you know, there's a 20-day notice period for any zoning bylaw amendments, and eliminate unnecessary planning applications for what are generally very straightforward requests that allow staff to process these applications way more efficiently. At the same time, it maintains the important safeguards that protect the municipality, namely registered agreements, financial securities, clear timelines, and enforcement provisions that ensure that not only the permanent dwelling is occupied, but the old dwelling will be removed. Accordingly, staff are recommending that council receive this report for information and direct staff to prepare the necessary housekeeping amendments for consideration at a future date. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Any questions, comments from council? Did you have your hand up? No. Go ahead.
I just
Councillor.
want to say thank you, and I support the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Lindsay for preparing this. And I think we had an example today how this would have saved us a bit of time. So I think that this serves all parties involved, and it's a good step forward. I just have one wrinkle that I'd like to run across the desk here, which is I know we have had discussions at different points in time about subordinating secondary dwellings in the context of ARUs, and how some properties having smaller primary dwellings, but seeking to replace them while retaining that structure. And I know we are seeking guidance from the county on how best to do this, but I know that there was potentially a test case with respect to Mr. Jameson on Marion. And I know that if we require them to enter into a demolition agreement at the beginning, then that would potentially close that opportunity from the get-go. So I don't see that as a reason to deny this proposal. I just want to flag it, and that, you know, if we do this, we are closing that door, and maybe there might be an opportunity to figure out an accommodation once that total pathway becomes clear.
Thanks, Councillor Heyman. Jennifer, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through the council. So what I'm aware of is that County Council has recently had their official plan approved, and it is now in place. They do include some ARU policies, which would allow for potentially a planning application that would consider having a second dwelling as an ARU. And so whether or not that's the first dwelling or the second dwelling, but that's potentially a possibility if a planning application is made before this temporary use process takes place. So somebody could come forward with an intention, get a planning approval, and that would be available.
Through Your Worship, so am I correct in assuming that that may be a separate application process altogether, or not requiring this vehicle?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, anyone else? In that case, then a mover and a seconder to receive the report, and that council direct staff to prepare the necessary draft zoning bylaw amendment for consideration at a future council meeting to implement the recommended approach to temporary use provisions for replacement dwellings. Moved by Councillor Crockett, seconded by Councillor Lockie, and all in favor? And that carries. Are you going to put this with her? Okay, the next one is 12.2 on your agenda. The MLPS temporary use for fire station number 2. We'll ask the CAO to present.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to council on behalf of my colleague, Chief Durkin. This is an opportunity that has presented itself while the MLPS does some upgrades at another facility, and they had a conversation about potential use of an existing facility that we own. So the chief has had conversations with Director McDonald and myself, and we thought it was a reasonable concept to put forward for a very short period of time, and we'd like to see that progress, and I'm recommending it to council that an agreement for a short period of time be entered into, and that staff be able to negotiate that, given the timelines we're looking.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council on this? Councillor Heeman?
Well, I think it's always good to work with our other emergency service providers, and it is nice that that would also mean that there'd be some operating base closer to our communities. So it's a good suggestion. Thank you, staff.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship. Report PW 022 26 Shills Lane vehicle length restriction recommends prohibiting vehicles longer than 10.5 meters from crossing the railway crossing at Shields Lane and amending the parking traffic bylaw 21-2024 Schedule G accordingly. The changes follow a June 1st, 2026 collision at Shields Lane grade crossing involving a CN freight train and a triaxle truck. No serious injuries or toxic spills were reported. A review under Transport Canada grade crossing regulations identified that sightline requirements depend on the designed vehicle used with a Transport Canada safety inspection. Transport Canada safety inspector agreed upgrading the designed vehicle to a medium single-use truck would improve safety for longer agricultural service type vehicles. Updating the grade crossing data and required signage, which should be happening tomorrow morning, and the bylaw documentation are being finalized, and remaining data upgrades will be submitted to Transport Canada before the July 28th, 2026 deadline. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Mr. Craven. Any questions from council? All right, I think in light of what happened, this is a good move.
Lucky.
Okay, a mover and a seconder to receive this report and authorize the fire chief to negotiate a temporary facility. Oh, I'm sorry. I dropped down that line again. The report number PW 022 26 Shields Lanes vehicle length restriction be received for information that vehicles with a length greater than 10.5 meters be prohibited to cross the railway crossing on Shields Lane, and that council consider the bylaw amendment bylaw 21-2024 parking and traffic bylaw in the bylaw section of the agenda. We'll move into seconder. Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? And that carries. So the next one is item 12.4 FS 014-26 request permanent doubling of the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, and we'll look to our Director of Financial Services. Mr. Clark, when you're ready.
Through you, Mayor, this report seeks council support for an MFOA resolution requesting that the province permanently maintain the current enhanced OCIF funding level beyond 2026. Thames Centre currently receives just under $860,000 annually through OCIF, making it one of the municipality's most significant and predictable sources of infrastructure funding. These funds help support the renewal of existing bridges, roads, water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure while reducing pressures on tax, reserves, rates, and debt. Staff are recommending council endorse the resolution and forward it to the province for consideration. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Clark. Any questions from council? No? Okay. Then a mover and a seconder for the motion as appended to your agenda. Councillor Heeman and Councillor Lockie, all in favor? And that carries. And again, we'll turn to Mr. Clark for item number 12.5, the FS 016-26 2025 operating and capital budget monitoring report.
Through you, Mayor, this report presents the municipality's 2025 year-end operating and capital budget results, and for the first time, a formal capital project closing report. The operating results reflect a relatively balanced year-end position. Property tax supported deficit is approximately 87,000. This will be funded from the tax stabilization reserve. A water rate supported surplus of approximately 149,000 to be transferred to the water capital reserve, and a wastewater rate supported surplus of approximately 244,000 to be transferred to the wastewater capital reserve. Council will also notice a new capital project closure component. While council approves capital budgets annually, completed capital projects have not historically been brought forward in a consolidated report for formal closure. The purpose of this process is to improve transparency, strengthen financial reporting, and ensure that completed projects are formally closed with any uncommitted funding returned to its original source for future capital needs and consideration. This year, administration is recommending the closure of 33 completed capital projects, which you'll find on Appendix C, representing approximately 17.3 million in approved budget, with net surplus funding of approximately 1.9 million being released back to reserves, reserve funds, and other funding sources. The report also provides council with an update on the overall life-to-date capital program and highlights several emerging financial pressures that will be important considerations during future budget deliberations. I'd be pleased to answer any questions from council on this report or appendices.
Thank you very much for the report. And I have a feeling that Councillor Lockie might have a question or two. Go ahead.
Yeah, through your worship. I actually got all my questions addressed earlier, but this is fantastic, and I really appreciate you giving us this much needed transparency on the capital closing projects. And I just want to make a comment regarding the wastewater reserve. So, we continue to see, favorable variances in wastewater. And so it's just something to kind of call out publicly for the next term of council when it's time to set rates that we may want to consider, continuing to freeze the wastewater rates because we're continue to, just add surplus. And so we may not need to have the rates as high as they need to be.
Thanks, Councillor Lockie. Was there anyone else wishing to comment on the report? Councillor Heeman?
Yeah, I do think this is a nice update, especially this time of year, because I know our directors have been busy with projects, and so it's nice to see the amount of capital works that have been committed and get a little bit more of a preview as to what the next council will see at their budget deliberations. So thank you for this added step.
Thanks, Councillor Heeman, and I appreciate it too. The increased reporting in the finance department is really appreciated. So if there's nothing else, then we'll move to get a mover and a seconder for the agenda, the motion listed on your agenda. Councillor Lockie as mover and seconder, Councillor Heeman. All in favor? And that carries. And I understand we need a short recess, do we? Okay, 5 minutes, people. We will recess and then be back here at 7:28. Ladies and gentlemen, 7:28, and we're back online and resuming our council meeting. Excuse me. The next item on the agenda is 12.6 CSF -020-26 live barn contract.
Through you, your worship, you have before you report CSF 020-26 regarding the request to enter into an agreement with Live Barn Inc., whereby they would install live streaming equipment at our 2 ice rinks. Live Barn has partnered with over 100 municipalities across Ontario and is in over 4,000 rinks across North America. I've heard back from the 4 other municipalities within Middlesex County that have already partnered with Live Barn with no issues or concerns from them. The way that this arrangement would work is that Live Barn installs video cameras that automatically track or follow the play on the ice. Families then have the option to buy a Live Barn membership in order to be able to live stream the games, practices, competitions, etc., with the municipality receiving a portion of that revenue. The main reason that Live Barn is a consideration tonight is to provide sports families that use our ice pads with the opportunity to watch from anywhere when they cannot attend in person. This is a higher level of service. Live Barn was very open to revising their boilerplate agreement to meet those recommendations of our lawyer, as outlined within the comment section of the report. Installation takes 3 to 6 months, and if approved, we would work on a live streaming policy to be in place before then, which I have already initiated talks with County IT in regards to. The municipality's commitments in this proposed agreement are outlined on page 3. Should you have any questions on those? We can expect approximately $2,000 in annual revenue following our first full season of offering Live Barn at the facility. Besides the cost of hydro, other municipal costs are administration of the system and potential liability, which is reduced in being named as an additional insured by Live Barn. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this occasion.
Thanks, Mr. McDonald. Any questions from members of council? Councilor Heeman?
Thank you, Worship. I think that's a really neat, novel idea. Occasionally, my son will tune into our live streams, so this is probably more entertaining for most people than. But I guess on a serious note, is there because I know that these are children's activities, and is there any assurance that it is limited access to parents, and that you have the safety of the individuals is considered in terms of access to people's activity?
Yes, through the mayor, there's various options, and the municipality controls all of them. So once we're set up, first of all, we can black out any particular period of time that isn't to be viewed by anyone. Secondly, if there's a user group that only wants, say it's a family reunion, and they don't want the standard Live Barn customers who they don't know to be watching their family have a skate on the ice. They could instead, we could limit the family reunion to be viewed by certain Live Barn members. Like say they've got Oma and Opa over in Europe. We could set it up that only Oma and Opa can watch that portion of Live Barn. So there's options for that. We would also put it in hibernation mode over the non-ice season, so nothing is streaming at all during that time. But otherwise, for normal things like say minor hockey, should minor hockey agree to it, then anyone who's a Live Barn member can view minor hockey, just like anyone can come into the arena and watch the game live.
Anyone else with a question? Councillor Lockie?
Yeah, through your worship. So I'm just curious why we chose this vendor and if we received any other proposals.
So through the mayor, they approached us. They're the most heavily used one. The one that we had explored earlier at the request of the Dorchester Dolphins was a different group, NBC Sports Engine. And as the Dolphins and their league was being mandated to live stream their games through that provider was unwilling to change one letter of their agreement, with our lawyer having various required changes. So we did not proceed with that provider, while Live Barn, when I mentioned to them that I don't want to paint the Dolphins into a corner, I spoke with the Dolphins. Live Barn is that's fine. If the Dolphins are able to, and the municipality is able to approve something with the other provider or anyone else for the Dolphins, that's fine. So these guys are really flexible. This isn't about making money. It's certainly not a money generator when we've got some admin costs. It's just about us providing a higher level of service, and LiveBarn is very experienced at doing that.
Thanks. Councillor Crockett.
Thank you for that. I think it's an interesting concept to explore, especially because people are out and about more often and yet still very in tune to what teams are doing. I think one of my questions is in regards to recording. Do we know if Live Barn subscribers are able to keep records of games, or is it just a live stream taking place?
Through the mayor. You are also able to go through archives and find previous games and whatnot. And the one thing I'm not sure on, but I'm happy to look into, is I would assume, because it is very flexible for our control, I would assume that we would be able to remove things from archives if we wanted, or if a team wanted, or whatever. The other thing I should expand on a bit is, so each person who pays for a membership for Live Barn, if they scan our QR code, then we get 20% of that revenue. And even though they're paying through our QR code, they can then watch Live Barn when their kids or grandkids or nieces and nephews play in any other Live Barn facility across North America. So it opens up your ability to follow your teams or your kids or grandkids wherever they play in a facility that has Live Barn.
And then just a follow-up question on that, and I believe you touched on it, but we would obviously need to make amendments to our ice rental agreements, letting them know that this would be taking place. And I assume there'd be like an opt-in, opt-out function as well. Would we require additional signage since video recording would be taking place in the arena?
Great questions. Thank you. Yeah, so first of all, signage is required and it is provided by Live Barn. They'll provide us with as many signs as we want. So if we don't want to paint a wall, we could cover it in the signs. And then as for one of our responsibilities is to make all the user groups where Live Barn would potentially be on, to make them aware in advance that that is there. They all have the option to opt out. And then we'd be responsible to black it out for them. And yeah, we would include it in the agreement as part of the awareness campaign.
Just excuse me, through you, your worship, to Councillor Crockett. We did a privacy impact assessment on Live Barn before we got to this point, and their answer about downloading data, it is allowed. However, there are mechanisms in place to restrict it, in that Live Barn users do not have an active subscription cannot download any video files, and those that have one are subject to only a monthly quota of minutes of video to download. And once they have reached those quota that month, they are prevented from further downloading any more video files. So they actually can't download an entire game because it says it's a small amount. So just snippets, I would assume, so people can use it for recruitment videos, but that would be why.
Okay, thank you to the clerk. Councillor Heeman?
And I don't expect a resolution or, really response, but it may be something to consider, amending fees and charges if there is this additional service that we may be able to provide, and if there is an additional administrative burden in doing some of these activities, like it added, you mentioned Omanopa over in Europe or whatnot, like that takes a little bit more staff time, and maybe these are things that we want to consider with our rental agreements and or fees.
Good comment. And to that point, a couple of thoughts is, first of all, I'd look into what other municipalities are doing in that regard, as well as what we could do initially if we kick it off for this fall, is we can do kind of a time study on what kind of impact it is having on staff time, and then decide accordingly.
Thank you for your comments, Council, and thank you to Director McDonald. Are we ready to move to the motion? Okay, so we have the recommended motion before us, that report number CSF 2026 be received for information, and that council approve the venue agreement substantially in the form attached to the report with Live Barn, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the attached venue agreement with Live Barn. Any mover in a second? Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? And that carries. Next one, Mr. McDonald, we're going back at you. Project implementation agreement with Great Lakes Canadians for field trips.
Thank you. As council will recall, at the previous meeting, council approved staff proceeding with negotiating an agreement with Great Lake Canadians for upgrading the Field of Dreams infield to artificial turf, with Great Lake Canadians paying for this $400,000 to $500,000 project beyond the $85,000 in current available funds that the municipality would make available to help with this cost. This report repeats the various benefits of an artificial turf infield, so I won't get into them at this time, but happy to expand if you wish. Thames Centre's responsibilities for this project are final approval on all details, releasing the available funds to Great Lake Canadians to assist with the cost, two prep work items, some drainage repairs and terminating some sprinkler lines, allowing Great Lake Canadians to sell naming and sponsorship rights for future improvements, with those payments still being made to Thames Centre, are issuing of donation receipts where eligible, and accepting current infield materials at our landfill. This report was expedited due to the desired project schedule starting in just 3 weeks, with no other council meeting scheduled between now and then. This has resulted in both parties still working towards amicably finalizing a few details of the agreement. Staff would only move forward should this be approved, with any changes to the agreement being supported by our lawyer. As a result, I'm not sure if the wording of one of the recommendations needs to be changed. I think we're okay with the fact that there's a few tweaks to follow. During review and discussion of this project with finance, it was determined that moving forward, it would be in the municipality's best interest to revise one term of our existing partnership agreement with Great Lake Canadians. So that's not this project agreement, but our 5-year partnership agreement. I have since discussed this need with Great Lake Canadians, and we will be meeting with them to discuss and finalize the proposed change, which would then come back to council for approval. Basically, what this is around is to minimize the impact on our annual budget. We need to ensure a portion of sponsorship funds raised via our ballpark sponsorship is retained for repairs and maintenance of these amenities, as opposed to the entire amount being held for improvements and expansions. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thanks, Mr. McDonald. Any questions from council? Councillor Heeman?
No, I just think that it's good that we're working with them on an enhancement to an existing facility. I know they've presented twice about their ambitions for increased capacity, so I think this is a good way to, trying to meet them halfway within our means. And obviously they have a passionate group of people that they believe they can fundraise with, and so I don't think we want to stand in the way of that ambition. So this is a good compromise. Thank you, Director McDonald.
Thanks, Councillor Heeman. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to be moving to the meeting, but the motion, but there's a slight adjustment in the wording, so I'm going to ask the clerk to read it out.
Just to address Director McDonald's statement about the fact that the agreement may have a slight tweak, the last paragraph would be, and that council hereby authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the project implementation agreement with Great Lakes Canadian Baseball Inc. substantially in the form attached to report CSF 23-26. And then all the rest is the same. It just is, we won't be making any material changes. It's just some general slight changes, and we want you to know it's not exactly the same as this.
All right, do we have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Lockie, and all in favor? And that carries. All right, we'll ask the CAO to present on item number 12.8, procurement services agreement with Middlesex County.
Certainly, through you, Madam Mayor, to council, this is a formal agreement for the office that the county has set up a few years ago that allows the local municipalities as well as the county to have dedicated staff for procurement So we have jumped onto this at the beginning of this year, having some of our procurements through the county's office as early as January, once the budget was set, but all of them since April have gone through county procurement office. The county recently developed county council endorsed the agreement that you see before you. They've shared that with our staff late June, and I put the council a report together so that we could authorize and formalize this arrangement. And I will note, this is already funded through the county level, so a levy, it's not an additional cost to Thames Center taxpayers.
Thank you. Any questions or comments regarding this item? Councillor Heeman.
I just think that, if we partner on this service, that hopefully it gives our directors a little bit more slack in their schedule. They still have to manage a large amount of projects, but if this can be an assistance in vendor management, I think that gives us some capacity to achieve all of the things that we have set out for ourselves.
All right, if there are no other questions, then a mover and a seconder for the motion on your recirculated agenda. Councillor Lockie and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? And that carries. Reports of committees. Item number 13 on your agenda. Items listed under reports of committees are approved by council in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. And unless there's something you'd like to pull, Councillor Crockett.
If I could, I'd just like to make a comment regarding 13.1. I just want to thank everyone for coming out to Canada Day. It was hot. Hot is an understatement. It was very hot. But thank you to the Lions Club. I think our fireworks were the best year yet. It was pretty spectacular to see the amount of people that were there. And so with that behind us, I just want to remind everyone that Corn Fest is taking place on Saturday, September 12th. And we have a very special local guest joining us for entertainment that will be announced shortly. So, yeah.
Thank you. I don't think I'm going to volunteer for corn shucking again this year because I'm a decided loser. Okay. Councillor Heeman.
I still have my trophy.
I knew.
So do I.
Uh-oh.
Game on.
I don't have a trophy. Okay. Thank you very much, people. So a mover and a seconder to receive those reports. Councillor Crockett and Councillor Lockie in favor, and that carries. Right. A brief report from me for activities. It's maybe a little bit lighter than some. I'm outlining my activities from the last report. Over and above regularly scheduled meetings involving Thames Center Council and Middlesex County Council, I attended 3 meetings of the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority Advisory Board, the Library Advisory Board, 1 session of Emergency Management Planning Committee in case of any emergence that might befall the municipality, a meeting of SCORE, and a very enlightening tour of the VON facility led by the director, Jill Smith, and accompanying on the tour was Minister Black and some of his staff as well, where we outlined the need for to be able to use the respite beds. There's a lack of funding on that one. In addition, I attended the local schools graduation ceremonies, both for the secondary school and the public school graduation. And I had it was a real pleasure to hand out the various awards presented by the municipality to these young people. And we have received some very nice thank you notes from them. So I think that will wrap everything up for that report. So Any unfinished business? Any notices of motion? New business? All right, so moving down to number 18, the bylaws section. That bylaws, mover and seconder, that bylaws 57-2026 through 63-2026 be read a first, second, and third time, and finally be adopted. And that bylaw 64-2026 be given first and second reading. Councillor Lockie and Councillor Heeman, all in favor? And that carries. No closed session. Confirmatory bylaw, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution of the municipality of Thames Centre. And that mover and a seconder, that bylaw 65-2026 being the confirmatory bylaw be read a first, second, and third and final time and be adopted. Councillor Lockie and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? Okay, and our next meetings will be August the 31st, Monday at 5 p.m., followed by Monday, September the 14th at 5 p.m. at the Thorndale Lions Community Center. So, that being said, a mover and a seconder to adjourn tonight's meeting at 7:49 p.m. Councillor Heeman and Councillor Crockett, and all in favor? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.